it's one of these lists, and normally I hate these lists, and I think that they're typically not very good, not very interesting. I think they're typically pretty soft. But to me, and I'm fine arguing about this because it's, there's no right or wrong answer, really. But I think this one's an absolute no-brainer. And I would argue, and this is depending on how you want to look at it, and I don't like to talk about athletes in a very dramatic way, but I think Caitlin Clark is one of the most dramatic athletes. And I don't mean the way she is. Okay? That's not it. It's not really, that's the amazing thing about her is as the phenomenon is that she's talented and simple and might be one of the best at staying in her lane and just enjoying the ride as a basketball player. But I would argue with you, she might be the most impactful athlete, I'm going to say, since Tiger Woods. In fact, I think I'll argue since Tiger Woods, which is going to sound crazy to a lot of you. You're going to say it's women's basketball. It's not that big of a deal. I don't think that's the point. So agree or disagree. Here's the setup for this. And I'm not even sure what other athletes even belong in the conversation because I'm so fascinated by her rise to fame. A lot of it's not her fault. A lot of it is she stumbled into a culture war that consumes the American public. She wanted no part of it, has never asked for any part of it, but that is part of her story. But as a difference maker, I would compare her to Tiger Woods, and I'm not kidding. So what other athletes should have been considered? I would assume, I would say Lionel Messi, but you're not going to care. And that's not going to move the needle with the American public. Simone Biles, maybe LeBron James, I guess. Caitlin Clark has been named Times Athlete of the Year.
Hey, Austin, Jeff Ward here, and I never thought I'd be in an accident and need a personal injury attorney. And then sure enough, less than a mile from my house, I was blindsided. I was injured. My world was turned completely upside down. I called DJC Law and their team took care of everything. I got the best result possible. Don't just take my word for it. They have over 1,000 five-star reviews. So if you're injured, call 512-888-9999 and get your justice at teamjustice.com.
I just think her story is a bigger deal. I think this really works. First thought, of course, not many people even know what time is. You know what? Have you stopped to think about that? I mean, you're going to see the picture, and if you're above the age of, 35 or 40, I guess, maybe 40, then you know the history of this. You know that it mattered at one time, but you're also going to have a lot of people, a good chunk of the population has no idea why it matters. A magazine cover doesn't even make sense to most people under the age of 40. But she is Times Athlete of the Year. And I'm beyond fine with this. I don't even think it's close. I might even say an athlete of the last 25 years. And I'll make an argument why. And I don't follow women's basketball that much. I don't really care. That's not the point of this. So she's Time Athlete of the Year. Duh. And so the word I would use when it comes to any list, right, if you want to make it bigger than just the sport, and I think that's what this is all about. This is about a conversation starter and a conversation piece, which I think is fine. Caitlin Clark, the word I use is impactful. Caitlin Clark, the female basketball player, was my argument here, the most impactful athlete of 2024. And I'm pretty sure I can argue the most impactful athlete of easily the last 5, probably 10, 15, and maybe even 20 years. I would say probably since Tiger Woods. Now I know, I get it. But no one has moved the needle like her. No one. I mean, the metrics back it up. Not only that, she accidentally, no fault of her own, got stuck in the middle of an American culture war. White America hijacked her. There you go. So she's the most impactful athlete of 2024. Name another athlete that has changed a sport, the prospects of a sport like she has. You can still say, well, it's women's basketball, still not that big of a deal. No one has changed the metrics of the sport like she has. Maybe Tiger Woods would be the only other one. Okay? And I mean, there's been plenty of good female basketball players that have come along. No one has changed the metrics of a sport. Give me another example. I don't know what it would be except Tiger Woods. And I'll tell you what I mean by change the metrics of the sport. Every metric since she was playing basketball at Iowa. Think about that. Playing basketball at Iowa. No one really cared. Next thing you know, the average person is watching. Next thing you know, the ratings don't just go up by 5 or 10%. They go up by 1,200%. She's changed the sport. She's the face of the sport. She's completely changed the stage. In other words, the ratings, the attendance, even the revenue. Find another athlete that could check off all those boxes to the extent with their sport that Caitlin Clark did. She changed the face of the sport completely. She took women's basketball with ratings, with attendance, and with revenue. She took it to a place it's never been. It was never even close to being. And then on top of that, I would think, and I would argue with many of you, because I think a lot of white people don't see it, then she accidentally landed in, my opinion, an American culture war and was hijacked by culture warriors. But, you know, I mean, it just led to the usual fights, but she never got out of her lane. It's not her fault at all. But think about that. Name an athlete that has moved those metrics anywhere close to what she's done with ratings, with attendance, and revenue. The only one I can think of is Tiger Woods. He completely changed the dynamics, not just of the sport, but he changed the dynamics of viewership. He changed, in doing so, he changed the dynamics in terms of attendance, and then in doing so, changed the dynamics in golf in terms of revenue. She did the same thing. I mean, none of those numbers were no matter how good the basketball was, none of those numbers were going to be that close. So I think it's interesting. I think her impact is not even something you could argue, and there's nothing, in my opinion, even close. Not to mention, she's obviously one of the 2-3 most talented players the sport has seen. The last time, I know this is a weird example, but to have that kind of impact, right, that she did in coming on the stage for women's basketball, the last time you saw something like that, I mean, even Jordan didn't do that. He took the popularity of basketball, took it to another level. But you know who relaunched the popularity of basketball? That would have been Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They played in the NCAA championship game in '79, I guess it was, in the highest rated game of all time. They go to the NBA and they keep the thing going. And then Jordan takes it to another level. I mean, Caitlin Clark comes along in the college sport and at the professional level and takes it from the ground floor, and it's like a rocket ship. No one's done anything like it. Not even Bird and Magic. I'm not saying you have to be a fan of women's basketball, but I think you do have to appreciate. I make the argument. I don't even think it's anything close. I wouldn't even have anybody else if I were in some meeting room for time. You know, they don't even have any relevance anymore. But if I were in a meeting room for time, I would say this is a no-brainer. No one else is even close. It's simple. I mean, she could probably win it 5 more years, and no one would still be very close. But think about that. The most impactful athletes like her, name one that did anything that changed the dynamic at all like her.